to the April Flare ecosystem call. We've got a lot to discuss this month, but I think let's start with some introductions. John, Flare Community, is away this month, but we're very lucky to have our advisor, Michael Maradian, joining us to co-host. So welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Sue. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. We also have a number of Flare team members with us. Our DeFi analyst, Dhruv.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, thank you. Yeah, very good. And our senior developer, Luca.
Yeah. Hello, everybody.
And we are very fortunate to be joined by Josh Hardy from Rain, who we announced that they're building on Flare. They're building a very, very interesting, intense-like DEX. So, hey, Josh.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here.
Good to hear. And we have one other guest, Gal Sagi, from Hypernative, which is a sort of machine learning driven security company, which we've just partnered with to help secure our DeFi ecosystem. So, hey, Gal.
Hi, good to be here.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm now going to hand over to Michael.
Thanks, Hugo. So I can just quickly introduce myself, everyone. So up until recently, head of digital assets and markets at Bittrex Global, and as well previously PwC and Grant Thornton. Very excited to be here. As you know, I'm pretty sure everyone here knows Hugo. So why don't we, deep dive in and find out a little bit more about Luca and Dhruv on the Flare team. Luca, maybe you can go first. Maybe you can please tell us, a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself to the Flare community, and what does your day-to-day look like at Flare?
Yeah, of course. Hello, everybody. I'm Luca. I've been working for Flare for almost 3 years now. I'm mostly focused on developing new products, mostly the state connector or FDC right now. So, but I've been very involved in the FTSO scaling and fast updates development. That's kind of something that we'll speak about today. My day-to-day at Flare is mostly, about supporting everybody who's building stuff internally and, kind of managing on where we go and what we do. And I think, that's pretty much it.
All right, thank you very much for the introduction. So why don't we move on to Dhruv? Maybe you can give us a little bit of introduction about yourself as well, and as well, what does your role entail at Flare?
Hey, thanks, Michael. So I recently joined Flare about a month and a half ago as a part of the ecosystem team to help lead a lot of what our DeFi rollout looks like. So as Flare looks to upgrade to FTSO V2 and as we add more and more price feeds to our Oracle, my plan is to try to help us think about what we can build natively to Flare that makes it genuinely distinct and novel. So I help out with FTSO V2, kind of the product side there, and also helping our grants and BD kind of find teams that could be genuinely novel to Flare. And Rain, of course, is one of them. As we think about products that we can build alongside their intent-based decks. So glad to have Josh here, and I'm very excited to be at Flare.
Amazing, thanks for that introduction. Why don't we meet our special guest now? So we will go into much more detail shortly. So please let us start with a quick introduction into the businesses. Josh, maybe we can kick off with you. Maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us what Rain and Raindex are all about.
Hey, yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'm Josh, and I'm one of the co-founders of Rain and Raindex. So there's two things. There's Rain Lang and Raindex. Rain Lang is a new on-chain smart contract language, which is easier to read and write than other languages like Solidity. And we're really targeting like an Excel level of literacy. In other words, if you can write spreadsheet formulas, we believe you can learn to write Rainlang. And then Raindex is a new decentralized exchange where all of the orders are actually dynamic strategies that are written in Rainlang. So they're like algorithmic order strategies, trading strategies. and you have total freedom in how you want to express your trades, whatever you can write in Rainlang, and a strategy can handle one or many trades. So you can do things like stop limits, but also dollar cost average that executes many times, or even more complex quant style trading strategies.
All right, thank you so much. Gal, maybe you can introduce yourself as well and give us a brief explanation of what Hypernative offers.
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. I am Gal, CEO and co-founder of Hypernative. Hypernative is a real-time security threat prevention platform. We work today with protocols, big chains, and big asset managers in detecting security incident post-deployment in a variety of different attack vectors before they happened, and then helping prevent these incidents from impacting or causing loss of funds to the protocols that we work with. We cover a lot of different attack and risk vectors that can happen to protocols, from smart contract vulnerabilities to front end attacks to market manipulation, private key theft, and basically trying to be this one-stop shop for all the different kind of security things that can happen, and helping you as a protocol prevent all of these before a loss is happening.
All right, thank you so much. So we can now dive deeper into each business in turn. I'd like to start with Rain. So, Josh, Rain is an intense like DEX. Can you please elaborate on what you mean by this?
Yeah, so first I can explain what intents are for those that don't know. So intents are a new way of thinking about user transactions. And so the idea is that as a user, you only specify the thing you want to happen, which is your intent, without having to worry about exactly how it happens. So for example, right now, if you want to swap some token, you go to Uniswap, or on Flare, you go to a Gnosis DEX, or some other AMM, and you'd find the pool that has the tokens that you want to swap, and you'd wait for the price you're happy with, and then you'd manually go and make a swap. In the intents model, you would say, I want to swap this token for this other token at least this price, and then it just happens. You put your intent out there, you sign something, you sign an intent, and then somebody else actually comes to fill that intent. So even if that swap that you're trying to do requires multiple routes or any other actions in between, that's the concern of the actor that's filling your intent, not your concern. So when we say Rain is like an intense light DEX, it's because you put up your order, you specify the input and the output tokens, you specify your strategy, so like how the price and amount is going to change over time, and you just deploy that once, and then somebody else comes and actually fills that order. So to go back to the dollar cost averaging strategy, your intent is that I want to buy $100 worth of Flare every day, wrapped Flare every day. You set that intent, you deposit tokens into the vault. Let's say you want to swap for USDT, you want to buy wrapped Flare with USDT, you put USDT into your vault, you say, you deploy your intent, and then you just sit back. You can switch off your machine. You don't have to sign anything else. It will just execute multiple times every day, and you'll buy 100 wrapped Flare till the vault goes dry.
All right, thanks. And would you say are there any other differentiators between traditional DEXs and intense like DEXs?
Are there what, sorry?
Are there any other, how do they differ basically? If you care to explain a little bit more from traditional DEXs beside this algorithm?
So, I mean, Raindex differs because, well, for one, you can write any strategy you like. So if you go to a DEX now, you make a swap at the price that's on offer at the time. But with Rain, you can say, I want a specific price, and that price can be conditional. So, for example, we've got up a bunch of example strategies that use the FTSO so that you can get up-to-date pricing. So you could do a stop limit, and you could say, when the FTSO Oracle shows a value or a price that's below my stop price, then I want to sell at the limit price. So you deploy that, and then again, you could walk away, and then when the FTSO read below the threshold, it would sell.
Nice. And How does Raindex differ with its offering from existing intense based dexes?
Yeah, so there are other intense dexes out there. The big difference is that everything with Raindex is on chain. So a lot of the other dexes will have off chain mempools or APIs, and they may have permissioned solvers, pools of solvers, and solvers are the actors that actually fill the intents. But with Raindex, everything's permissionless. Anyone could be a solver. Everything is on chain. There's no off chain infra to make this work. And there's also no limits to what you can express. So with the other intents apps out there, they usually have like a set number of intents that you can express, or some of the more like some of them may allow more expressivity, but with Rainlang, we're literally saying there's no limits on what you can express, and actually the language itself is permissionlessly extensible. So we expect that, you know, as this develops, that other people will jump in and create new words and new functionality for users.
And how come you guys are able to be permissionless when other intense platforms are not, as you mentioned?
The reason is because everything's on chain, because we've actually created a smart contract language. So we're saying basically that we already have this beautiful constraints engine, which is the blockchain itself, you know, the world computer, EVM. And all we need to do is give people access to that. Right now, only devs can, Solidity devs get access. They can write whatever they want. Everyone else has to use what the Solidity devs have created. We're saying we want to create a language that more people can access, and therefore we can open up that constraints engine to everybody. So because everything's on chain, it means it's all governed by smart contracts. So it can be permissionless, it can be trustless. You can have parties come together and know that the smart contracts will only ever execute as written.
Nice. So you mentioned previously something that I want to touch base on. So Raindex enables functionalities like stop loss and copy trading. You know, typically these are found on centralized exchanges. How does Raindex achieve this in a decentralized manner?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'm going to keep giving the same answer, but it's because we created Rainlang, and so because you can write a smart contract, you you can do these things decentralized. So you don't have to sit there and have a bot or have someone else manually make the trades on your behalf. You are literally writing a smart contract, which is your intent. You're depositing your tokens into the vault that's connected to your strategy, and then you're letting the smart contract handle it. And that's why it can happen um, when you're not even there. You don't have to be there manually doing something. With a centralized exchange, you give your tokens to them and they do it for you. But we're saying if you can do it on chain, then you can deposit your tokens, and then because it's governed by a smart contract, actually somebody else can execute the transaction, but completely trustlessly.
And how easy is it to set up a strategy? Does someone need to have like coding experience?
So it depends. If you're an experienced coder, you can totally dive really, really deep, get creative, and create something really complex. If you're especially, or if you're a quant, but if you're not either of those things, you can grab one of the examples, change some of the parameters, and get started straight away. And if you go to our docs on at rainlang.xyz, you'll be able to see I've made a bunch of videos where I'm going through different strategies and showing how you can use them, and there's also the links to the strategies are there, so we've got 4 or 5 strategies that all use the FTSO, and you can dive in straight away and don't need to really know how to code it all.
All right, for those listeners that are interested that are less experienced that want to get involved, you know, Josh just shared how you can, and he provides all these examples for you. Josh, one more thing. So the announcement mentions a trading competition recently you guys did as well. So is there any more information you can give to the community about this?
Yeah, so the trading comp is going to start at the end of April, exact date TBC. So we're going to have $12,000 in prizes. There'll be a first prize for like the best overall strategy, and we'll have some other categories as well, including one for best use of the FTSOs. So in the examples you'll see on our site, we're already using the FTSOs in those, but I think you know, once this goes out to the community and to those who really love this stuff, people can get super creative and make some amazing things. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what people create. And if you're not if you're not a quant, I'd still encourage you to dive in and give it a go.
Cool. I want to touch a little bit on the FTSO integration you just mentioned. So, what does the integration of the Flare time series Oracle enables, specifically for people using Raindex on Flare versus other EVM chains?
Yeah, so the Rain Lang is permissionlessly extensible. I think I mentioned before. So anybody can add new words. So for Flare, we added a set of new words which use the FTSO. And basically what it means is that you'll see in the examples, but it means you can bring in the FTSO prices into your strategy. So like the example I gave before with the stop limit order, if you want to trigger your order based on some external price, you can use the FTSO to get that price. And we think that that's the best situation using the FTSO over other oracles and other chains, because you've got the same level of security as the chain itself for the FTSO price. So it's a really good. We think it's a really great place to use Oracle data on Flare.
And will there be extra points for the people using the FTSO in the trading competition?
I think we'll have a special category just for strategies that make best use of the FTSOs.
Josh, I appreciate that. That was very helpful. I hope if any listeners have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments as well. I would like to go over to Gal to ask a few questions as well, do a deep dive about Hypernative. So, Gal, the Hypernative system sounds very impressive. Are you able to explain how you can spot potential attacks before they happen?
Yeah, of course. I think one of the reasons also why we started Hypernative is before maybe getting into how we detect things is we found out there are few misconceptions today when it comes to Web3 and security. And there are three main misconceptions that we saw. I think the one of them is that security audits are enough, like protocols thought that when they're doing an audit, it's a good enough protection measures to help them avoid any security incident, and that's something that is very that is not really practical in real life, because what we see is most of the protocols that got hacked in the last year and a half were audited, even at times more than one time. And this is because audit, even if it's done perfectly, still doesn't cover all the different kind of attack vectors that can happen on a protocol, and it's done in a point in time where a lot of times it's hard, or you don't necessarily want to wait to audit all sorts of code bases. I think that the other misconception that we have identified is that people think that hacks happen in a single transaction. And what we have observed over, again, the last 2 years that the system is operating is that in 99.5% of the cases in the last time, that's not true. There are some preparation that are needed in order to carry attacks by malicious actors. And a lot of times, even after the first tech transaction, there are still other transactions that are happening, like not all of the amount is stolen in the first one. Which leads me to the third misconception is that when you are getting hacked and when funds are lost, it's like it's lost forever. And I can tell you that just in the last month, we have helped two projects already recover funds, and they were non-customer of Hypernative, by the way. We helped them recover funds after they got hacked. So there are many things, some can be shared, some cannot, but there are things that can be done to recover funds after an attack. And I think based on these misconception, we started and we took our expertise in other areas of security to leverage very advanced machine learning and graph heuristics algorithms in order to basically detect attackers before they do an attack. So we found out that there are very indicative signals that bad actors are doing either on or off chain. And these things, these preparation are basically being able to classify if you have a very accurate system. And of course, when you detect the intent to do an attack and you detect that this intent is going to be successful, you can basically prevent that attack with a variety of different vectors. And this is essentially the base to what Hypernative is doing. We are also a lot of times we are also working with the protocols that work with us, and Hypernative today works with close to 100 protocols and chains as customers, and that's we model the specific risks that you have in order for you to basically be able to monitor and react to different risks, not just security risk, but all sorts of risks that are available.
So, Gal, I want to ask a quick question, which would you be able to maybe at least give us one specific example of how Hypernative has successfully identified and prevented malicious attacks on a Web3 project, one of the last ones, if you're able to share?
Yeah, sure. Of course, some or many of our save of customers, some of them would like to remain anonymous. I can tell you that first, for non-customers, like we helped various projects in the past 2-3 months to basically recover even when they were non-customer of Hypernative, basically by just going to their Discord and warning them that we see the signals of an attack. And again, this comes to the misconception that even after an attack happens, you can still have enough time to block the loss of all the funds from the protocol. But I think one of the interesting cases that we had is one of our customers was actually the founder itself was hacked by bad actors by a malware that they installed in the founder computer. They send him a PDF by email, and bad actors like North Korea and others are using these techniques to again get an inside access, right, to the founders or to the development team of a protocol, and then they installed this malware and they installed the EOA that was in the founder computer, and in this case the founder unfortunately didn't have a multi-sig and used this EOA to control some of the protocol contracts. Now, what we do usually when we work with you is, of course, set up these out-of-the-box detections that I mentioned, but sometimes it's also about detecting these unauthorized action that can happen. And when the attackers, after they stall, they try to do a transfer ownership based on that EOA that they stole, and Hypernative essentially classified that as an unauthorized and triggered an emergency shutdown of the vaults that were integrated with us. A lot of funds were saved based on that, and that's just one example. I think over the last year we have seen Hypernative detecting almost all the hacks and exploit that happen, and in many of the cases, just as a metric, 99% from our recent research, we actually detect them a few minutes before they happen, which makes this a very valuable, I think, tool for protocols, chains, and asset managers.
It's very fascinating. And how can Hypernative threat detection systems specifically benefit and protect projects built on Flares? For example, like Rain.
Yeah, so I think first we are very happy to partner with Flair. I think I've known Hugo for quite some time due to some mutual acquaintance. I think we are both building something that is deep tech, very technical and professional teams. I think what Hypernative is doing is basically something that can benefit any project. And the way that we have partnered is that any project building on Flare can go and get an access to Hypernative platform for free. They can leverage our team and the threat detection and essentially start creating these guardrails and these detections where they can, of course, get visibility into what's happening in their protocol. And for example, for rain, it's something that we will, of course, work with the team and see all the different kind of attack vectors, right? Because people are right, like are very focused on smart contract vulnerabilities, and that's maybe an important aspect. But then, okay, what happened with your front end, right? Like with your web application, right? What happens if someone is, I don't know, DNS hijacking or making your users or your community basically interacting with something else than what they think they're interacting? Or maybe it's something that related to your wallet infrastructure and the multisig. So we help you basically create that security plan together, and then be protected from all the different things, bad things that can happen.
And what would you say are some best practices for continuously monitoring, detecting, and preventing, Web3 security threats in real time? And as well, maybe if you can share what are the smart questions to ask when evaluating different real-time monitoring vendors.
Yeah, thank. These are great questions. I think that so first, I think the best practice is to use Hypernative or or a similar system, right? You do again to me when uh, monitoring and being able to see what is happening and how people are interacting with your project and making sure that everything is working properly is like a basic thing that everyone has to do. I think then the next step is understanding that there isn't one solution, right? There isn't one vector that fits all. It's about using a system, and this relates to your other question when you're evaluating other platforms or systems, right? You need to make sure that they are covering all the different attack vectors that can happen in real time, right? Like you want a one-stop platform that basically manage to help you and protect from all the different things that can happen. You don't want to use like 5 different solutions for each part. And you want to really start thinking about things before they happen, right? Like our team has helped a lot of non-customers protocols because we are part of the SEALs, by the way. Three members from our team are part of SEAL 911. We are part of Crypto Isaac, like a lot of organizations that are around helping protocols. And a lot of times when something bad happens and you are getting it's right, like if you don't plan ahead you don't know what you want to do. So thinking about the risk that can happen, monitoring this specific risk for you, thinking about what are the reactions that you want to do, either manual or automatic, and there are always reactions or things that you can do, and then creating this plan. I think when you are evaluating, of course, understanding how wide the solution is covering is important. It's also very important to understand how accurate, right? Like what are the actual methods that this solution is using? Is this a real, I don't know, machine learning that classify attacks and know to understand who the victim of an attack, right? Like it's not enough to understand there is an attack happening, but you also want to understand who is the specific victim of that attack in order to take action, right? And that relates to false positive, right? Like do you want to use a system that alert you every 5 minutes there is something bad, right? Like that's not useful for you. So you want to pick that system. You also want to think about when you're using monitoring about a system that basically let you customize the risks and the things that you monitor and help you in a very easy manner get visibility to any risks that you that you want to track. And these are a lot of times these are not just security related. These could be operational or performance risks that you might want to monitor. And the good thing for all projects building on Flare is that they get access to that in Hypernative, and Hypernative today covers all of these points that I just mentioned. So please reach out to me. I'll maybe we can leave also my contact details or the team contact details that you can reach us if you want to get onboarded.
All right, I appreciate that, Gal, so much. That's very, very helpful for the audience out there. Hopefully, you can reach out to Gal, but not in worst case scenarios before that to prevent any of any damages and so on and so forth. So